Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Meet Me series here on Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway, a blind perspective network. I am your host, Victor Gouveia. And remember, like, share, and subscribe, especially if you want to know when we go live, hit that notification bell. Definitely follow us on Facebook and Twitter, especially our Facebook page. And check us out on podcasts everywhere, whether it's Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify. And last but not least, if you want a copy of the video and audio for this episode, send me an email, whose blind life is it anyway, at gmail.com, or DM me on Facebook or Twitter, and I will send you a folder link where you can get it on Dropbox. You can download the video or audio of the file. Uh, the Meet Me series is our weekly show where you get to meet some interesting people that I get to meet. And like I said, they're all interesting, whether they be sighted or blind. I showcase them here on the Meet Me series, and we get into their life, get to know them a little bit, see what helps them through life, what helped them through whatever situation they're going through, and maybe the way they handle their situation can help you. So if you feel anyone can benefit from what we say here, definitely share it with them, whether that's on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Our next guest is, well, my best friend. We have known each other for, God, I would say at least 15 years. And we first met each other when my brother and I started an assistive technology company, and we were in contract with the um, assistive devices program with the government of Ontario. And Zoe, my next guest, was our very, very first client, the very first customer. We got her a computer, we got her a whole system with a large monitor and everything. And she, at the time, was low vision, though I think her vision's degraded a little bit. She is still low vision, but I think she has light perception and stuff like that. But anyway, I thought it was important to interview her for two reasons. One, because she's suffered through a lot throughout her life. And when I say suffered through a lot, I mean really suffered. I mean, this poor woman went through bullying like crazy, all because of her blindness, whether it was through high school or through her young adult years. And she had to deal with it. She dealt with it all on her own. She had some really good friends. She had some really not nice friends. But she still managed to deal with it. You will also be hearing about authentic miracles. Now, I'm not talking about simple things like she just happened to find $1 on the street or something like that. We are talking about actual religious miracles. And I caution you, just because you don't believe in miracles doesn't mean other people don't believe in them. The fact is, these are experiences that Zoe had. Whether you believe they happened or not is not up to you. Whether you believe in Zoe's faith or not, it's not up to you. At the end of the day, her beliefs are her own, and whatever she chooses to believe is her prerogative. But you will hear about miracles. In fact, Zoe's life is so large. We had to do the interview in two parts. I mean, that's how big her life is. The second reason I thought you guys should meet her was because she's doing a whole new show for our network. She is the person I've been talking about for the last few months. And we're doing it in conjunction with our network and her newly formed channel, Zoe's Blind Kitchen Corner. I will have the link in the description box, so go subscribe if that's all you want to see. If you want to catch other stuff, subscribe to Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway? But like I said, it's in conjunction with her channel and mine. The episodes will premiere on the same day at the same time every Wednesdays, and you can catch them either here or on her channel. And I think they'll be a success. Zoe is primarily Greek, and I won't say that her cooking is primarily Greek, but she does do a lot of Greek recipes. At some point, I will be a guest on her show because she lives practically right next door to me. And my wife is going to be a guest on her show, showing her how to cook a Filipino dish called pancit, which is Filipino noodles. And the bad part is the thing that takes the longest for pancit is the prep time, because there's lots of vegetables to cut up. There's chicken to pull or shred. Sorry. And of course, there's the noodles to make and stuff like that. But in the end, my God, it's delicious. Really delicious. It really is. I love it. But anyway, look out for that too. Because, like I said, it's an interesting series, and I think you'll love it. The first episode actually premieres July 1st on Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway? And Zoe's Blind Kitchen Corner. So check it out then. And in the meantime, meet Zoe Fiogkos. She's my best friend. And our next guest on the Meet Me series. Thank you for being on the show, Zoe Fiogkos. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests. What is your visual acuity?
I'm considered visually impaired because I can see light and dark and shadows and shapes. But everything is so blurry that no matter what I look at, I really can't make it out. I can't make out what it is. Right. Unless it's a familiar object and I've gotten used to it. Like I know where my stove is. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, just for transparency's sake, I think our viewers should know a little about our history. Way back when my brother and I were in the assistive technology field, we had a contract with the Ontario government that it still does give computers out every 5 years to blind people. I think I mentioned it on several of my past shows. Anyway, Zoe was our very first client, our very first customer. And I don't know if it's because she's European or because we have similar backgrounds. The fact is, her and I have been best friends since then, over 15 years. And one just has to know that friendships like that don't come and go forever. They come back into your life and they come into your life for a reason. Zoe, we were separated for a while,
Almost 6 years.
almost 6 years, yeah, because of um, some issue we had in the past. However, when we got back in touch with each other, we realized it's like no time had passed. I mean, sure, we caught up with certain things that happened, but at some point, it was like we were just talking like we normally did. It was like no time had separated.
Obviously, the desire was there for both of us, and obviously, our friendship was strong enough
Yeah,
because we were able to get through it, and it's like it never happened.
that's right. And when you have friendships like that, you can't really just terminate them completely. At some point, they come back into your lives, and those are the ones you should hold deep onto. Um, because I don't think I don't think I have any other friends like her at all. So,
I love you, Victor.
well, I love you too, dear. Um, so I mean, just so you guys know, Zoe and I have known each other forever, and I've heard all these stories. In fact, our first interview was a fuck up because my daughter is, well, I won't say what my daughter is, but she is. And so we actually have to tape this interview again. Um, and like I said, we're doing two parts of this interview. Um, we're doing this first part now. We're going to cover Zoe because Zoe has had so much happen to her. We are going to concentrate on Zoe's child years and teenage years, which was the majority of the good times and the bad times, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that issue first because I think those issues are really important. Not because of what happened to her, but because of the fact that she just went through it all and came out so well. Also, we're also going to be talking about authentic miracles. Now, word of warning, whether you believe in miracles or not, these are bona fide miracles, not the kind that, oh, wow, I just found $1 on the street or something like that. No, these are bona fide miracles of the supernatural kind. And whether you believe in the same God that Zoe believes, or whether you believe in her religion or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that she believes it. And that's what's more important. So, what is said here is Zoe's actual experience. It's not some tale she's embellishing for the camera. It's not something she is making up to get more sympathy or anything like that. These are actual events that happened to her. She considers them miracles, and I respect that. I have always respected that. So I ask you to respect the same. So let's start. You were born in Toronto,
Yes.
of course. I don't know why I thought you were born in Greece.
Maybe because maybe because I speak both languages and I'm so involved in my Greek culture that maybe that's makes people forget
You
even
think so?
French.
You
Yeah,
think that's it?
maybe, yeah.
I mean, I was born in Portugal, and I used to speak Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, French, English, and like I was always thought of as Canadian. Literally, I mean, I would be on the streetcar. These Portuguese women would start making fun of me, and they think, oh, he's not Portuguese. He doesn't understand me. And then they'd be totally surprised when I speak to them in Portuguese on my way out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like, do you actually look Greek? I mean, do you have that type of features?
Yes. Yes.
You have a complexion and
So
stuff.
I'm I've got the curves, like I've got that Mediterranean body, and then
Uh-huh.
I've got the dark features, like so my dark brown hair, my eyes are dark brown with specks of green.
Uh-huh.
Um, I've got the sort of long Greek nose, you know. Um, yeah, I've got the really big bushy eyebrows that due to COVID I haven't been able to settle down.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But when I do take care of them, they look good. But I hope they look good today because, like I said, COVID, we can't even get to a barber.
That's interesting. Do you pluck them?
I
Wax?
don't. I can't. Unfortunately, I can't do it myself. That's one thing that I've never, even when I had sight, I was never able to do it on my own. That was something either my friends did for me. I mean, I could do makeup, hair, I could do everything else.
Uh-huh.
And the only thing I couldn't do is shape eyebrows. So that was something
But
either my friends.
that's now though.
No, even when I was 20, I had
Oh,
to
okay.
I had to go to a salon or get my friends to do it. I was able
Right.
to do my own makeup, but I wasn't able to shape my eyebrows by myself. No.
Right. So, do you go to a salon to do it?
Yeah.
And they thread it or pluck?
No, wax.
They wax it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is the best option because it takes longer for them to come back.
Doesn't it hurt though?
Oh my God, never mind.
And
You
I'm
know me, if
I'm
you're
asking, look,
okay.
this is why I'm asking, okay? I am going to be doing a show on, well, manscaping. And one of those manscaping things is waxing.
Mm.
And I have no idea what I'm going to feel.
Oh, let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no kidding.
It it hurts.
Yeah. No, I figured it as much. I just never thought, it can't hurt that much because I get tape ripped off of me when I'm in the hospital. But
Yeah, and let me just put it this way, but different body parts hurt more than others.
right.
Regardless, it's funny because when I first waxed, I think I was around, I don't know, 19 or 20.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, why are people putting themselves through this? And all these women kept on telling me, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. Let me tell you, I'm 50. I still haven't gotten used to it. I don't know what they're talking about. Again, though, some people have more of a pain threshold, and it depends on your skin type. Some people's skin is more sensitive.
Right.
So it all depends. I mean, it is possible. Like you might hear somebody saying, if I wax my underarms, I'm in tears, and somebody else might say, oh no, that doesn't bother me at all. It's my upper lip that bothers me. Or
Right.
somebody might say, no man, I can't handle my legs.
Right.
It depends on, everybody's different in that sense.
Right. So, speaking of skin types, we can talk about your miracles first because I think those are important to you, aren't they?
Hmm.
I mean, you've had how many miracles in your life?
Oh, I can't even count them. Well, my personal miracles are 3, or maybe I would even say 4.
Mm.
But then my family is also surrounded by a whole bunch of miracles.
Right.
And, you know, the whoever's listening to us now, of course, there will people who will believe, and then there's people who will doubt, and there's people who are going to say, yeah, right, whatever. That's fine. But when your own parents, it's like your parents relay something to you. For example, your parents came from Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And if they relay an incident that happened in Portugal, and I'm not talking about a miracle, just an incident,
Mm-hmm.
you have no reason not to believe them. They're your parents, right?
Right.
So, if your parents say, oh, we had a crazy woman living in the village who, I don't know, used to walk out naked every day at 2 p.m., why would you not believe your mom who told you that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have no reason not to believe my parents and the things they told me. But then having experienced my own miracles, it just makes me believe them that much more.
It just gives them credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your first miracle was when you were how old?
The first miracle was when I was a baby. Of course, this one I don't remember. This has been related to me.
Right.
Because I was born premature, and the incubator, when they put me in the incubator, I was born healthy, but I was supposed to be born end of March of 1971, and I was born December of 1970.
Right.
So I had to be put in an incubator because I wasn't up to size. I was only a kilogram.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know back then, and they didn't cover the eyes. So my optical nerves were burnt from the too much oxygen. But for some reason, it either got lost in the interpretation or my mother was never told because my mom didn't speak English. So she had an interpreter.
Right.
Actually, I just want to backtrack for a second, and it won't take long. When my mom put me in the incubator, when they told her I had to go into the incubator, my mom had a dream that night when she went home. She saw an old man with a white beard and sort of in clergy wardrobe. And he said to her, take the child out of the incubator because the child's going to go blind. I will protect the child. She didn't pay attention because, sometimes even my mom, she said, oh, it's probably my subconscious or whatever, right?
A dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second night she saw the exact same dream again. And this time she said, who are you? And he said, I'm Saint, well, it's a hard Greek name, but Saint Nectarios. It's a Greek saint.
Right.
And so my mom, she told my father basically, even though he came from a very religious family, and even though he himself believed quite a bit, I don't know what happened, but at that point he said, you take my kid out of the incubator and I'm going to kill you. And my mom, being your typical Greek woman, she was frightened.
She had to obey.
Yeah. So she didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed in the incubator till March. And then I was taken home, supposedly with a clean bill of health. And then my mom noticed, that I wasn't responding to rattles. I wasn't, looking at her. I wasn't smiling. She just, she would shake a teddy bear in front of me and I wasn't responding. Or, those things that they put on top of the crib, I forget what they're called.
Mobile?
Yes.
Yeah.
The shining, music and stuff. I didn't pay attention. So my mom started telling people, something's wrong with my kid. Something's wrong with my kid. Actually, my mom thought it was a brain issue. So she called my uncle, who was a taxi driver in Toronto, and he had been here for much, much longer. And she said something. And he spoke English. So we went to the hospital and we were told that, or my mom was told that the child is blind. That's why she's not responding. And my mom said, why wasn't I told? And all this, well, this, well, you should have been told. What do you mean you weren't told? Anyways, she said, no, nobody ever told. So the story was that I was completely blind.
Now, this was because they didn't cover your eyes for the
Yes.
oxygen. Right.
Which most preemies back then did end up suffering this type of injury.
Right. Right.
I don't blame the doctors personally, because I don't think they knew.
Right.
You can't protect a child when you don't know what to protect it from.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
So my mom, like all moms, cried and screamed and did whatever. And then she said, well, okay, this is what I've been dealt with. She's my baby. I love her. I'm going to raise a blind child. Not sure how to do it, but I guess I will learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, she would give me toys and she would explain to me, this is a doll, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, a couple of years later, we actually moved around. We lived in Manitoba for a while. We lived in Windsor. Anyways, and at some point, my mom left me with a babysitter, a Greek babysitter,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to go out shopping for Christmas and stuff. So the lady just happened to have holy oil from the Saint Nectarios, from his gravesite in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up putting it on my eyes. And slowly, I started asking questions. I started telling the lady, you know, Aunt Helen, what's this? What's this?
Mm-hmm.
What's this? And she's like, do you see that? And I'd be like, you know, whatever. Yeah, but what is it? You know, this is a cup. This is a plate. This is whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then my mom came home and she had the stuff in paper bags, because back then we didn't use plastic bags.
Mm-hmm.
And the paper bags ripped from the snowstorm, and she was basically holding dolls in her hands.
Mm-hmm.
So as she walked in, I heard the door and I looked. And of course, that was the first time I ever saw my mom's face, but I knew her voice, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as soon as my mom spoke and said, hi, honey, it's mommy, I'm home, you know? I said, hi, mommy, you brought me dolls. And my mom just fainted, because she's like, well, how does she know I have dolls in my hands, right?
Right.
So the lady, you know, they got my mom too, you know, gave her water, whatever the case is. And the lady told her, said, look, calm down. You know, a miracle's in progress. Like your daughter's sight is slowly coming.
Right.
It's been for the last hour, whatever it was, half hour. She goes, you know, it's been getting stronger and stronger. She's asking a lot of questions. She wants to know what everything is. You know, we've already explained dolls to her. And I guess that's, you know, how I knew that those were dolls in her hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my mom at that point, of course, she had the curiosity to test me out. So she started saying, did Aunt Helen show you what fingers look like? You know what your fingers look like? I'm like, yes, you know where. And I was about 1.5 to 2 years old. And so my mom started testing me out, and she noticed that I could only see like a couple of meters away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So she thought, even though the lady warned her and said that the sight is coming slowly, she turned around and said, why would you grant a miracle to a child partially? So she kind of like questioned God himself.
Right.
And at that point, my vision stopped coming. And actually, my mom, to this day, my mom is 73 years old. She blames herself, because she's like, I lost my faith. At that point, instead of thanking God for the miracle,
Right.
you know, I questioned it, you know. Regardless, then the lady realized, because they hadn't spoken about this with my mom, and they realized it was the same saint that warned my mom, you know, when, you know, warned her not to put me in the incubator. But anyhow, so that was the first miracle. Now, again, I don't remember this, because I was only, whatever, you know, 1.5 to 2 years old.
Right.
So I grew up being visually impaired, which meant I could see light and dark in my right eye, and I could see some movement from my right eye.
Sure.
And then my left eye, though, I had quite a bit of vision.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in school with large print books. I did my own makeup later on in life. I crossed the street by myself, never used a cane. Like I had quite a bit of vision. That's changed now, but I think we'll talk about that later. So that was kind of our first miracle. Do you want me to?
Yes, by all means, keep going.
The second one was, and it involves the same saint again. So obviously, this is a saint who's dear to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I was about either in, actually, hold on, let me think. Grade one, grade two was, yeah. So I was in grade, it was Mrs. White. Yeah. So I was in grade 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already failed a year. So I was in grade 4, let's say whatever age you're supposed to be. I was, a little bit older.
Right.
And my mom, we lived on a dead end street.
Yeah, I think I remarked during our first interview that you and I grew up almost exactly the same on a dead end street.
And it's funny because now we already did this interview, so don't fall asleep on me.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's like how you said, we've been friends for 15 years and we're still discovering things about each other, which is wonderful.
We are, yeah, exactly.
I lived on the Danforth, which is Greek town. I don't know if you want to explain that.
I mean, the fact is Toronto is very diversified. There are cultural areas specific to certain cultures. For example, the Danforth is where Zoe lived. That was known as Greek town. I grew up in Little Portugal, and we have a Little Italy, and I think there's a Jewish town, and I don't know how many Chinatowns we have.
But then New York is like that too, right? Like Astoria is kind of Greek town for them.
Yeah.
And they've got Little China and all that stuff. So
yeah, and then you have the Brighton Beach area, which is for Russians and Slovaks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and back then it's actually a really nice area because you've got your main strip that's got all these stores, but there's apartments above the stores, and then the side streets are all your traditional, homes and schools and parks, and this is a very nice area. Anyways, so I grew up there, and because I lived on a dead end street, my mom at that age was still concerned about me crossing the street by myself.
Sure.
Because she figured even if the child says she can see enough, does she have the brains enough to put it together? The less sight plus, look both ways, plus will she see the car coming? Whatever. Right. She was concerned. But our sort of corner fruit market / variety store, I didn't have to cross any streets to go there.
Uh-huh.
And he was an Italian man named Frank, and everybody loved him. And every Greek woman was Kubara to him, and every Greek man was Kubaro. And we just called him back Kubaro or Kubara, which actually means godfather or godmother.
Right.
So my mom basically put money in my hands and said, go to Kubaro and tell him, Mommy told me to tell you to give me potatoes. Like a sack of potatoes. She had just forgotten to get a sack of potatoes. And it was my lunch hour from school because my school was actually right next. That's what separated the stores and apartments from the school was the dead end laneway.
Right.
So I actually even went to school by myself because I didn't have to cross streets or anything. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, and so I went, got the potatoes, Frank put the change in my pocket, and so here you have this little girl, holding this big sack of potatoes. And of course, as a child, I'm, looking around, doing whatever, singing my songs, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And as I was walking, I lived towards the end of the laneway, so towards the end of the dead end. So as I was walking, I knew every store by heart that was back there. Uh-huh. I knew every person who lived there, who worked there, every car that should be there. And it was always when we would hear cars, all the kids, but including myself, we would just move to the side, right?
Sure.
It was almost the whole, playing hockey on the street. Oh, car, move.
Yeah.
So I heard a car coming and I moved to the side And I looked and I saw it was the blue van. And I knew that that blue van belonged to Percy Flowers. It was a flower shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh, okay. So I moved and I waited for, you know, the Percy Flower van to go by, the blue van. And I loved that van actually, because it was a very beautiful light, like sky blue color. I know there's blind people out there who might not know what color that is, but trust me, it's a beautiful color. Anyhow. And so I saw the car go by. So I stepped back onto the road and started to walk. Well, I was thrown down. He backed up. I don't know why he backed up. He backed up, didn't see me. I guess wasn't looking in his mirrors. And he started to basically, well, the potatoes got the first grunt of it, but then the car just kept on reversing and he started to squash me. At this point, I mean, what does a little girl do? So I just started praying and saying, Saint Nectario, save me. And when the car got basically to somewhere around my chest area, I thought, oh my God, he's going to smush my head. And then the car just stopped and it moved forward and off me. And he came out and he's like, what just happened? Where did you come from? Whatever. I'm like, excuse me, you smushed me. You smushed my potatoes, And he looks at me and goes, oh my God, what just happened? He goes, I didn't see you. And then all of a sudden he goes, I was reversing and my car just stopped. I couldn't move. I had no control over my car.
Right.
Now, at that point, I wasn't sure I was understanding what he was saying myself. Anyways, he panicked, started asking me, if I'm okay and all this. And I kept on telling him, you almost smashed me. You smashed my potatoes. So he took me to the store and got me a new sack of potatoes and basically told me to go on my way. So I went home. Again, I didn't say anything to my mom because I thought I had fear of my mom for some reason. I thought she was going to tell me you weren't paying attention or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't say anything. But as I was sitting there having my lunch, I started to cry. And so my mom, the whole, honey, what's wrong? Whatever. I told her everything that happened. So we stepped outside and we went walking down the street. She saw the potatoes all smushed all over the ground. Then we went to the store. She confirmed with Frank, with Cubano, Frank, that the man brought me to get a new sack of potatoes. So then she grabbed, Percy Flowers, right? And said, there's 100 kids back here playing. You have to be more careful. And the driver admitted everything to my mom. And he explained to her, and he said to her, as I told your daughter, I'm not sure if she understood, but, I was reversing and then all of a sudden I had no control over my car. Like it just stopped dead in its tracks and then moved forward without me, touching it, or my legs weren't on the go. He goes, I don't know what's going on. And actually he was Chinese and he said, I don't know what God you guys believe in. He goes, but certainly saved your daughter's life today, Yeah. So that was my second miracle. But the first, of course, that I remember. Right. Yeah, so there's been quite a few. There is one that is very simple. My grandma in Greece was a woman who lived in poverty. She was a widow, with 3 kids. One of her kids had passed away. She had 3 left. Right. And out of the 3 kids, the 2 kids lived in Canada and the 1 kid lived in Greece. So basically my father and his brother lived here. And my aunt lived in Greece with her. Sure. My grandmother was your typical housewife. She was born in the early 1900s. She never got any education. So she didn't know how to read or write, for that matter. Right. So she would get a letter from one of her sons in Greece. She knew it was a letter from Canada because around the envelope, it always had these blue and red lines and she knew it was airmail. She knew the colors and all that stuff. So she
Sure.
knew. So she would go to the neighbor and say, please, 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 read my letter to me. Somebody sent me a letter, one of my sons.
Mm-hmm.
If she had to go to a government office and sign something, she didn't know. She would just basically grab the pen and she would make an X, or, she didn't know how to write or anything.
Right.
So my grandma and actually her daughter, my aunt, they lived as nuns, but not in a monastery. They lived like homebound.
Okay.
So they didn't have TV or anything like that. No, they didn't listen to TV or radio or anything. They spent their time, with crafts and maybe, reading the holy books. But the thing is, my grandma couldn't read.
Right.
So she would just open up the book and she would just skim the pages and she would just cry and she would just say, I wish I could read. Like, I can't read the scriptures. I can't read,
Right.
So one night she went to sleep and she saw a woman in her sleep. And my grandma said, who are you and what do you want? And she said, well, for people to understand, she said, basically, she told my grandmother, I'm Mary, the mother of God. But that's not how it's said in Greek. In
Right.
Greek, we call the mother of God Panagia, which means all holy.
Okay.
And that's the name we have for her. So she basically said, I'm Panagia, and your desire and your belief has been granted, like due to your belief, your big desire has been granted. Get up and open your books and read. And she said, but I can't read. I know, she said, but you're going to be able to read from now on. But the thing is, she could only read holy books. She still couldn't read her letters from Canada. She still couldn't write. She still couldn't sign a document.
Mm-hmm.
She could read the scriptures.
Right.
And she kept on saying, to the day I die. What a miracle. How I can't even read my, whatever, a letter. I can't, she was like, I can't read a magazine. Not that she wanted to, but you know what I mean? She's like, I can't read the sign at the store. I can't read something costs, but I can read the Holy Scriptures. And I met my grandmother. And she told me and she showed me and she's like, look, honey, and she would read to me from the Holy Scriptures, and then she'd say to me, but I can't read, your daddy's letters, so that was like, and I'm glad I got to meet her. And she had quite a few miracles in her life. That was one of them.
Sure.
I don't know. Do you want me to tell more?
No. I mean, if they're important to you, I think it's important that everyone feels they're important to you, that everybody knows about them.
Well, so again, before my grandpa died, he died when my dad was 16. So think about it. Like, my dad had me when he was 30, whatever, right? So anyways, they lived in the north part of Greece, and it's actually a city quite close to the borders with Albania and everything. And it's actually very cold there. It's Toronto climate.
Right.
So they have your, minus 10 in the winter and loads of snow and so on and so forth. Anyhow, they lived in a house, and my grandpa was in charge of, he would repair steeples and install bell towers, like bells in the bell towers and stuff like that. Like, he would repair churches outside, buildings and stuff like that.
Right.
So anyhow, so my grandma was at home being your typical housewife. Kids were playing in the front yard. We didn't really have backyards in Greece. We had front yards.
Right.
Just as big as our backyards, but they were always in the front. The house was always at the back.
Right.
So my dad was about 12 years old, and he was playing, in the front yard. My grandma was inside cooking, whatever. And there was a knock at the door. And actually, my grandma got a little bit annoyed in the sense of sort of, why didn't, my dad's name was Marco. We called him Marco. Why didn't Marco answer the door? Like, I'm so busy, type of thing. So she answered the door, and it was a lady, an older woman. She looked very tired and cold and sort of, torn clothing. She looked really helpless.
Right.
Well, my mom's, my grandma's like, can I help you? And she's like, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm very tired and I'm very cold. And I was wondering if you had like a glass of water or like something hot, like a beverage to give me, because I feel sick. My lungs, like my chest hurts, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was like, my grandma at the time, she was a young woman. So she's like, come in, because out of respect, she said, come in, grandma, of course, So she gave her some tea, and then she took out some bread and said, here, have something to eat. I don't have much to offer you, but whatever I have, you can have, whatever. Anyhow, and then she said, hold on, let me go get you a blanket. And that way you can put it over you to help with the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So the lady's like, oh, thank you. You're so kind. And she's like,
It's 2:00.
Whatever. So my grandma went to get the blanket. When she came back, the door to the house was open, and the woman's head covering, she was wearing a head covering,
Right.
had fallen on the floor, and the woman was nowhere to be found. So my grandma was like, where'd she go? First of all, she can't even walk. Like, she's so old, she can't even walk.
Sure.
So she ran, she stepped outside to the yard and looked around. She couldn't see the lady anywhere. So she said to my father, where did the grandma go? My father's looking at her like she's lost it. And she's like, what grandma? I didn't see no grandma. She's like, were you not paying attention? A stranger came to our house. She goes, no, Mom, nobody came to our house. Door never opened, like, meaning the yard door.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, Mom, nobody came to our house. Mom was like, okay, he's a kid. He wasn't paying attention. So she ran out onto the street, looked both ways, nowhere to be found. So she's like, that's really strange. Like, a woman who can hardly walk 2 steps and she's disappeared. Okay. My grandma chalked it off and said, hope she's well. Anyways, well, that night she fell asleep and she sees that woman in her sleep. And my grandma's like, who are you? How can you be in my sleep? And she's like, I came to your house today and you fed me and I was hungry, and you gave me drink and I was thirsty. I am Panagia, which is, again, the mother of God. She goes, your faith is strong and you've done right. Like, as a Christian, whatever. She goes, and for this I will reward you. Your husband is going to fall from the church steeple tomorrow, but don't worry, I'm going to save his life. So my grandma woke up and she was all, shaken, whatever. She thought, okay, it's a dream, She went back to sleep. She woke up in the morning and her husband had already left, because her intention was to warn him.
Mm-hmm.
And around 1:00 in the afternoon, he didn't show up for lunch. And my grandma's like, started getting worried. And then all of a sudden she heard all the townspeople calling, Zoe, come out. Your husband has fallen from the church steeple. And my grandma walked out and she said, I know, but he's okay. And they're like, how do you know that? And she told them the story, and they're like, oh my God, whatever. So grandpa fell from the steeple and his shirt was caught from a nail in the wall. And everybody was saying this little tiny nail was holding, this 200-pound man,
Right.
say whatever. So anyways, so my grandma, she's related a lot of stories like this to me, and she would always try to tell me, don't ever lose your faith. Like, I'm a living example of things that have happened, like even to herself. I think the last miracle I'd love to relate is my grandma. This was before my grandfather died. My grandma was very ill, and the doctors basically told my grandpa that she doesn't have much left to live. Right. And the neighbors would come in, because of course he still had to feed 3 children, right? And of course his dying wife. So the neighbors would kind of take turns, and they would, clean up and feed the children and take care of my grandma. She was bedridden. She couldn't get up at all, whatever. Mm-hmm. So one of the ladies related to her and said, next week, I'm not going to come and take care of you. So-and-so is, because I'm going on a trip to the south of Greece. I'm going to go visit Saint John the Russian.
Mm-hmm.
So Saint John the Russian is a saint in the south of Greece on an island. Technically it's an island. It's called Evia, and it's just off Athens. But you don't have to take a boat to it now. Like there's a bridge.
It's actually interesting. I didn't anticipate us getting a language lesson and a geography lesson.
I thought it would be cool to kind of get that.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
So there's a bridge, so you don't have to take the ferry boat. Like, you just drive over to the island.
Uh-huh.
And his body has been laying in what people call lying in state,
right, for
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. The body's never been tampered with. It's never been embalmed. It's never. Sometimes you can even see him breathing. Like, it looks like a man is sleeping.
Right.
And it's actually the Greek government, which is actually against the rules of our church. But the Greek government allowed scientists to confirm, yes, right, that it hasn't been tampered with, because I don't know what they wanted to prove. But anyways, it doesn't matter to me. So my grandma, when she heard this, she's like, I want to come with you. And they're like, Zoe, you can't walk. You can't walk. She's like, look, I know I'm dying. If I die on my way there, so be it. Like, take me with you. My grandfather, of course, was against it. They convinced him. So off they went. They loaded her into the bus.
Well, I don't think, did you say what she was dying of?
At that point, they didn't, maybe because it was 1920s or whatever. I never got, the story I got is they didn't even know.
Right.
Now, is it they didn't know because they were uneducated and they didn't understand the doctors? Who knows?
Right, right.
But even leprosy at first,
nobody knew what it was.
Yeah. Anyhow, so they get there. Now my grandma needs people to hold her up to get into the church, right? Like, she can't walk.
Sure.
So the way we venerate saints' bodies, mm-hmm, they're usually encased in glass. Sometimes they're not.
Right.
You make a bow. You do the sign of the cross, which is a little different from the way the Catholics do it. It's a different way. Mm-hmm. And then you actually kiss the body or the glass or whatever it is you're venerating, an icon of Christ or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So they were holding my grandma, and she said, okay, let go of my right arm, because we do the sign of the cross with our right arm. Mm-hmm. So she bowed and she did her cross, and in front of everybody's eyes, he lifted up his hand and he punched her in the stomach.
Right.
And she fell on the ground, and without getting too graphic, pus was coming out of her body, but mainly from her private part.
Her vagina, folks.
Right. I'm sure people know what a private, yeah, you're right. Anyhow, and it was so bad, and the stink was so bad, mm-hmm, that basically they didn't move her there. They didn't move my grandmother from that position for 3 days.
Okay.
So they would clean up, and they would feed her, and they would also pray at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then after 3 days, she got up, lived to be 83 years old. Mm-hmm. And of course, lived to be an old woman, and was just fine. Lived out the rest of her life just fine. And, hundreds and hundreds of people saw this happen. Even if I didn't see it, for one, I have no reason not to believe my grandma. Sure. And two, it's actually a story that's still told. If you go to the monastery, and which I had the honor of doing so in 2018, if you happen to come across one of the older folks, uh-huh, they'll relate that story to you. And they'll say, there was a woman once upon a time, her name was Zoe, and she came to, she was ill, and they'll venerate. I mean, they'll tell the story, you know, which of course makes me happy and honors me dearly. Mm-hmm.
And is that body still there to this day?
Yes, yes. I just said I went in 2018 and I venerated the body.
So you're saying the body is still lying in state there
Yes,
all these years?
yes.
Wow.
Well, forget Greece for a second. There's one of our saints, Saint Sava.
Huh.
Saint Sava, his body has been lying in state since 500 AD in a monastery in the desert of Israel.
Really?
And actually, but women are not allowed there. It's a men's monastery.
Uh-huh.
But in 2018, Foti got to visit because I can't. I'm not allowed in.
Right.
But Foti went and venerated Saint Sava's body, who's been, let's say, Saint John the Russian's been there. And forgive me if any of my Greek friends are. I don't remember how many years, but Saint Sava, he's been lying in state for the last, 1,500 years.
2,000 years, yeah.
Right. So, and actually in Greece, though, we have quite a few of these. We have Saint Demetrius, who's in the second largest city in Greece, Thessaloniki. And then we have Saint Patapios, which is actually in the south of Greece. So we have quite a few, saints. And in our case, many, many miracles from one end to the other of Greece. Like, so for us, it's almost unbelievable that I'm not trying to insult anybody. Please, whoever's watched, don't take it that way. But we kind of feel like if you need something to help you believe, take a visit to Greece.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and a lot of people say Israel is a place you should go to. And places like Mecca and stuff like that. I mean, does that at all jive with your religion?
Well, Israel, and which is what we did. So we visited the Holy Lands in 2018.
Right.
And it was for me, it was a do or die because I was suffering with a strange illness that nobody was able to figure out what was wrong with me. I got accused of being crazy. I got accused of, it's in my imagination, psychosomatic. I got accused of many, many things. I really didn't have any medical help in Canada. The original doctor who diagnosed me wrongly, she to this day says, I don't care what anybody says. I saw her body. I know something was wrong with her. I thought it was such and such a thing, but obviously it wasn't, because she diagnosed me with something contagious. And nobody ever got it from me. And I actually had this for about 2 years or 2.5 years. So, and then I ended up having to resort to contacting doctors in the States, even in Greece, sending off pictures, getting medication shipped to me. Different doctors were trying to take different guesses of admitting that I have something, but not sure what it is.
So it's safe to say that when medicine failed you turned to religion.
Even though, and I sound like a devout Christian, and I'd like to think I am, but see, this is how life can throw you in a loop. I lost my faith with that illness. I lost my faith completely. I was mad at God. And I said, and forgive me for anybody who's a Christian out there, and I'm going to say this, but I said, Christ, what did he go through? Nothing. Look at what I'm going through. And of course, my mom and my husband were like, oh, don't say that, honey, whatever. But at that point, I was suffering so much that I almost, I kind of lost my mind type of thing.
Right.
I couldn't find help. This was my issue. I couldn't find help. Help me figure out, what is this? I had a woman look at these things that were coming out of my body under a microscope. A homeopathy doctor. And she confirmed and said, these are bugs, but I don't know what kind of bugs they are. My family doctor confirmed that there's something wrong with me. I don't want to get into the whole story because it's very long, but even I went and I saw an infectious disease specialist, and he said to me, look, one, after a very lengthy conversation, and I guess he was sizing me up. After a lengthy conversation, he said to me, okay, look, you're absolutely not crazy. You are not a cheater. You didn't cheat on your husband. You don't have something that's contagious. He goes, whatever you're doing, whatever you believe in, whatever, whatever God you believe in, that saved you. He gave me his actual personal number, and he said to me, I hope that this never comes upon you again, but if it does, I want to investigate because I know this exists, he said to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard stories. If you had come to me earlier, but you know the waiting lists to see a doctor in Toronto.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I finally gave up on the medical profession, in a sense, because I was tired. I didn't know what else to do. I was suffering. My body, my skin was burnt from everything I was trying to put on my skin to get rid of whatever this was. My mother was opening up my skin. She became a doctor. She was opening up my skin and tweezing out bugs and throwing them in a jar. I'm crazy. Okay, I'm crazy. What about my mom? Is she crazy too, who was tweezing them out of my body? Is my husband crazy, who watched all this happen? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Plus, I mean, it's kind of hard to deny the existence of bugs in a jar.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I got the opportunity to go to Israel on a trip, a planned 2-week trip, which basically would visit every holy site, north to south, east to west in Israel. To be honest with you, did I have the money to do such a trip? Absolutely not. But I said, if I have to go in debt, if I have to sell, I don't know, my clothing, my house, whatever the case is, I need to make that trip.
Now, why?
One, because it's my duty. And two, I need God more than ever now.
Even though you didn't believe he was doing this.
Well, what do you mean I didn't believe he was doing
Well, you said you lost your faith.
Yes, but I think it wasn't a complete loss. It was for a day or two. And then I cried just like St. Peter, and I said, oh my God, I've denied you, where in the end, you're my only help.
Right.
And I've denied you just like St. Peter. I cried and cried and cried. And actually, my confessor father at the time, he's retired now, but I still keep in touch with him. I'm actually going to spend next weekend with him. He said to me, I went to see him and I said, help me. Help me because I'm losing my faith, because I'm suffering and I don't know what. Part of the thing that hurt me, Victor, was, what is this? How do I protect myself from this? How do I protect my family from this? And it was the unknown. Is this something that'll pass? Am I going to have it for the rest of my life? Am I going to die from it? I had a doctor in the States who said it's possible that it's, he named off a disease and said, this is very
contagious.
Common in Australia. And if what you have is this, which it does look like it is, he goes, but I can't diagnose it just through pictures and email. He goes, if it's this, you've got about 5 years to live. And he actually...
5 years, really?
Yeah. That was the average timeline. I mean, could it be 4? Could it be 6? The average timeline for somebody who had what he thought I might have had, that's very common in Australia, especially amongst the, I forget what, anyways, Aborigines or something like that.
Right.
It's something that spreads amongst them, and unfortunately,
it kills them off.
Yeah. So anyhow, I mean, and at that point I thought, should I try to find money and go to the States and see if, he can diagnose me properly, and maybe, is there any treatment for this, or whatever the case is, But then I got, like I said, I decided to put my faith in God, and I wasn't going to travel to the States. I didn't have the money for the hotels and the doctors and the medical bills and whatever the case was. I said, I'd rather spend that money. I have an opportunity to go and venerate, God's tomb himself, but, whatever. And I took that trip, and it was the best trip of my life. I saw miracles happen in front of me there. And I came back, and it's 2021, and I'm totally cured without any medical assistance. It disappeared when I came back from Israel. Actually, it disappeared while I was in Israel.
Right.
But I kind of confirmed it when I came back, because I thought, okay, I'm in Israel, whatever. When I came, that's it. It's done. But I don't like the fact that I don't know what that was. Just because on a human level, I don't know what to protect for myself. Protect myself from.
You don't know where you got it from, and you might get it again.
Exactly.
From that same place.
Right. Did I get it from a motel room? Did I get it from the garden? Did something bite me, and then was it a pregnant insect who gave birth in my body? Do you know what I mean? What do I need to protect for myself? I don't know.
Right.
But regardless, it's 3 years later, and I'm healthy. My skin is back to normal. I mean, I have a couple of marks here and there. The only thing that because of everything I tried putting on my skin has become really sensitive. So because to go point form, I bathed in chlorine. I slathered vinegar all over my body. Any what do you call those? Natural oils you can think of, clove oil, and clove oil burns like heck. Anything you can think of, I put on my body. Any concoction, sulfur. Yeah. So I looked like a shriveled, old, burnt woman. And my skin is back to normal, but it's very sensitive now.
Right.
I almost can't use any beauty products, or, I really have to be careful because my skin is really sensitive. But everything else is back to normal, and I look normal.
It's interesting you put it that way, because a lot of people might say that because of what we're going to talk about next, that being your bullying, because you were bullied a lot because of your sight, or your lack thereof. And so a lot of people would say, you're not thick-skinned enough, which is ironic, because now you say your skin is so sensitive now. What a segue.
Yeah.
But I mean, your childhood years were fairly okay. I mean, in school, you had no issues with bullies or anything like that. In fact, nobody thought of your eyesight as anything different.
Right.
But when you moved to junior high, or grade 6, for those who don't know what junior high is.
No, grade 7.
Grade 7, sorry. Yeah. My apologies.
That's okay.
Things took a dramatic turn for the worse.
Yes.
Do you want to tell everybody what happened?
Well, from a very innocent child, I was thrown into junior high. I was a very innocent child. I was a very happy-go-lucky kid. So as a friend, of course, said, no. Mom's not going to pick out your clothes. You're not going to wear this to school. No. We're going to put lipstick on. All of a sudden it was like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, first day of school was a shock for me, because it's like, oh, we don't have recess here?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean we have 8 classes a day? Oh, what do you mean we have a test on Friday? It's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I was like shocked. And then, but then I was also shocked when I saw, because my school was usually junior highs in Toronto are mostly grade 7 and 8, but this particular one was 7, 8, and 9.
Right.
And so, being a grade 7er, you're watching the grade 9ers, and they're in, high heels and mini skirts. They look like they're going to dances, and I don't know, there's boys and girls kissing each other in the in the hallways, and I was in shock, right?
Right.
But believe me, I grew up quickly, or this new world was so interesting. When you're a child, oh my God, whatever, right? And of course, I right off the bat fingered out a boy, and I was like, ooh, I like him. I liked his smile, whatever the case was. So
you had a crush.
I had a crush. And whenever he'd walk by me, I'd smile at him and I'd say hello, and he would do the same back. He was a grade 8er. Now, my best friend, the one who opened my eyes up to teenage life, that I'm not a baby anymore, she was a grade 8er. Well, even though she was a really good friend, and I think she loved me, I don't think she meant harm by it, but she made it known that I have a crush on so-and-so. So she basically said, little Zoe's got a crush. She didn't intend for this to whirl out of control.
No, of course, right.
Well, there were a couple of mean kids. Well, those mean kids started bugging him about it, in the sense of, she can't see, and the little blind girl likes you, and they were teasing him. And maybe, thinking back now, I mean, back then, of course, I blamed him first, I wanted to kill him. But, thinking back now that he was a child himself anyways, he, I guess, couldn't handle the teasing, and he stopped talking to me. And I mean, it's not like we had conversations. He just stopped saying hello to me. And when you're a little girl, a young girl with a crush, I was like devastated. Why is he not talking to me? What did I do?
Right.
Actually, sorry, backtrack for a second. Before he stopped talking to me, and I think this is what finally made him stop talking to me, the final teasing, was we had our first school dance. And some of the nice girls asked him, they said, she has a crush on her. Like, it's okay, make her happy. Do like a slow dance with her. So they came up to me, they said, guess what, Zoe? And I'm like, hi guys, they're like, Tommy wants to dance with you. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to slow dance. They're like, oh, don't worry, this is how you do it. Whatever, right? Shake your butt a bit, put your arms up, whatever. Anyhow, and it was scary enough for me because it was my first school dance, but it was also, and I'm sure you remember this, it was in the gym, lights off. My vision was horrible in the dark. My vision was excellent in the day or under lights, but in the dark it was horrible. So of course my friends and I had concocted a way for me to get around the gym, without sort of bumping into everybody and whatever the case was. So we started to dance, and he was very nice. He's like, hi, how are you? Whatever, so how's school? So making small talk, but then all of a sudden I noticed he wasn't talking to me, and he was really fidgety and looking around and kind of moving his hands, like meaning letting go of my waist and kind of, flicking his hands around. Of course, I didn't know what was going on, whatever. Well, I found out later, and he got embarrassed and he left me standing on the dance floor all by myself. So they were teasing him. Those 2-3 mean kids were teasing him that he was dancing with me and whatever the case was. He got embarrassed and left me on the dance floor. And of course, that was the first time I panicked because I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? Where do I go? Because I'm in the middle of a dance floor. It's dark and I don't know, So I but I was a quick thinker, thank God. Even though I was a follower at the time in my life, I was a quick thinker, and I looked around and I looked for the open gym door.
Right.
And basically said, follow the light. And hopefully you don't bump into anybody. And I went outside and I started to cry. And then the nice girls, the nice grade 8er girls, and Caroline, if you're out there watching, thank you, came and consoled me and took me with them and, tried to just get me don't worry about it. They're jerks and blah, 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 blah. And tried to get me in the mood to dance and whatever the case was.
Mhm.
Well, after that, I guess he just couldn't take the teasing anymore and he stopped talking to me. And I kept on finding out that people were teasing him, that they were making fun of me, that he started making fun of me because
Mhm.
he was, I guess, trying to join the crowd, right? So they can stop
Yeah.
teasing him. He started to partake in the making fun of me and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I thought of a plan and I went through with it and I found his number to his home phone number. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Mhm.
And I called him. I pretended I was a high school girl. So if he was in grade 8, I pretended that I was in like grade 11, but I was like 16 years old. And I saw him working at a gas station where he worked. And I think he's a hottie and I want to get to know him and all this. And I convinced him that I was this older woman, who was interested in him. I convinced him so much. We had so many conversations that he started to confide in a few friends at school saying, there's this girl, she got a hold of me. She goes to East York Collegiate, da, 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 da. And of course, once I had my 20, 30 phone calls with him and I had convinced him and he was dying to meet me and, whatever the case was, I set up a date, told him what I'd be wearing and portrayed myself as the, really high-heeled shoes and red mini skirt and, whatever the case was.
Sure.
And of course, I never showed up. And then when I went to school on Monday, I started making fun of him. And I was telling everybody, go ask him how was his date with Christine. And by the way, tell him that I'm Christine or whatever. So, of course, he was made a fool of. And then he got vicious. So it backfired me in that sense because he got vicious. He got his younger brothers who were still in public school. They would throw rocks at me during my lunch hour. I had no other way of going home except by walking by his house.
Mhm.
And they would basically throw rocks at me and hit me and stuff like that. It was very difficult because, I could see, but I couldn't see small objects. And remember, I had enough vision. I could see one of his brothers coming towards me, but I couldn't see that he had something in his hand and he was going to throw it at me.
Mhm.
I couldn't play sports. So I couldn't play baseball. I could see the batter. I could see the pitcher, but I couldn't see the ball.
Right.
Right. So I couldn't see something coming at me. So I think in a way I was lucky that they didn't actually open up my head,
Mhm. Mhm.
So school was very vicious for me at that point. My escape was with the help of my best friend who was looking for a reason not to go to school. We would just skip school so that I don't have to go through all of this.
Mhm.
And it was just vicious day by day. Some people, and again, girls like Caroline and Jenny, and they basically went and said, this has got to stop. You guys started this, you made fun of her, you did this, you made fun of her eyes. Like, what if, it was your sister or something like that? And then she got back at you. Okay, yeah, she made a fool of you, but you guys started this. And now you could actually really hurt her. And due to some other circumstances, a pervert teacher that I don't want to really get into, but I failed that year.
Mhm.
I wasn't exempted from classes that I should have been. The school system, I think it's because I went to regular schools. I think the school system was kind of learning
Mhm.
themselves, because my later junior high years and high school, I did get exempted from certain subjects due to my eyes and so on and so forth. And I even got like CCTVs in the school and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But by the end of the year, I mean, I stopped hanging out with my friends. I was a loner because I was afraid. I was afraid of getting hit. I was afraid of being made fun of. And I remember I was sitting on the steps of the school and I was actually crying, not because of all of this, because I was thinking, how am I going to tell my mom I failed? And the funny
Right.
thing is I was like a straight A student. So how do you explain this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow, and he came up to me and he said, "Can I sign your yearbook? You know, I did whatever I did. You did whatever you did. This is over. Let this be over." And he apologized. I apologized, and he signed my yearbook. And actually, my second year at grade 7 was fantastic. And I thought, even my grade 8 year, I became very popular, and I had met some new friends too. And actually, I didn't end up doing my grade 9 year in that school because I wanted to follow my new crowd and my new friends into high school. And I thought this was my grade 7 year was one of the worst years of my life. And I didn't even go into detail because we don't have the time, but it's horrifying. But I thought by the time, I was going to go into grade 9, I thought, okay, it was just a situation. I was just unlucky. It happened. There was a couple of bad apples. I didn't think I would ever go through something like this again. Well,
yeah.
Well, grade 9 was even worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want me to get into that?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean the fact is, people shouldn't treat each other like this.
Absolutely. No matter what it is, whether it's someone being overweight, whether it's blindness or deafness or color of the skin, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I, in grade 9, got a new crush. There was a gang of guys in the school, and one of them didn't like me for a stupid reason. His girlfriend lied to him, and he blamed me, thinking that I influenced her, which wasn't the case. In me, Victor, I had a lot of spark, but I couldn't get it out because of my blindness. I was scared. And I was more of a follower. Parts of me were coming out. So I was excelling in school. I was doing plays. I was doing different things. I was looking for work. I was a fashion icon, whatever. I did all this stuff in school because I was being caught between the sighted and the normal world. I wanted to be considered normal. I didn't want to be considered that blind girl.
All right.
Not that there was anything wrong with it, but why? Why are you labeling me?
Right.
I can wear makeup. I can do clothing. I can dance. I can walk. I can, do whatever. Right? Like, why? Anyhow, so here I am, all dressed up. I've got this new crush. He finds out. So it's funny because he wasn't part of what was considered the popular gang in school. And because of me, because he found out that I liked him, because one of the girls in our crowd told him so, he became part of our group of, 50, 60 kids or whatever. And everything was great. I did get this kind of bullying from this particular boy who was mad at me because of his girlfriend. But it was okay. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't constant. It was still hurtful. But I kept on saying, it'll go away. Nobody's paying attention to them. But on my 16th birthday, we went out. I had alcohol. That isn't an excuse for anybody to hurt somebody. But if I didn't have the alcohol, maybe I wouldn't have gotten into a car with this boy. To go home, not to make out. I got in the car with him. We were supposed to share a cab to go home. And he sexually assaulted me. And I confided in at that time to who was my best friend. It was a boy best friend. Now, did that boy best friend have a crush on me? Most people I've told the story to and the details, which I can't get into now, believe that he probably had a crush on me. And thinking that I got into the car with this other guy to ride home, maybe he didn't believe me. So he basically went to school the next day. Instead of supporting me, the victim, he went to school and told everybody that I'm a slut. And I get into cars with boys and I do things that I shouldn't be doing. Well, the boy that was mad at me that I told you guys, well, he jumped on this. So now they came up with a nickname for me, which was Cyclops. And for the longest time, I couldn't even say that word because it hurt so bad. And I would walk down the hallways and I would be the Cyclops, the one-eyed monster. I heard stuff like this. It would be like, you know, just constant, to the point that my teachers even, you know, grabbed on to what was going on. They tried to give me answers in the sense of stop hanging around these people, use a different entrance to the school. But I didn't want to leave my friends. I didn't want to leave the popular people. I didn't want to be, again, just like junior high, off on my own, dirty little girl sitting in the corner because, you know, whatever. I didn't want that. I wanted to excel in school, but at the same time, I wanted to be free, popular, do what I want to do and not be made fun. I just wanted normalcy.
Right.
And they wouldn't allow me. They wouldn't allow me. And we had gone to a dance, not a school dance. It was just a dance that somebody had put together on the Danforth. And a guy approached me, and I had gone with my cousin Rula. Well, she's not really my cousin; she's my god sister, and her then boyfriend, who's now my husband, or her husband. Yeah, and one of these guys came up to me with like a little, I don't know, muffin of some sort or cookie or something with a candle on it, and he started to sing "Happy Birthday" to me. And I thought, oh my God, how sweet is that? So it's not all bad. I kept on thinking to myself, like while he was singing Happy Birthday. Well, when he was finished, he said, so now that I sang Happy Birthday to you and I even got you a present and I'm so nice to you, do I get oral sex? He didn't say it in that way. He said it the rude way. He said, do I get oral sex? And I collapsed. I started bawling my eyes out. And of course, Rula's then boyfriend saw me and freaked out and said, what's going on? And I told him everything. I told him how I was taken advantage of and, you know, blah, 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 and that they won't leave me alone now. They're all making fun of me, you know? And instead of grabbing the boy who forced me to do something I didn't want, instead of grabbing him, they were all just making fun of me, you know? So, of course, George went and let this guy, Alex, have it. And not that it stopped him for a while because George was a, you know, 6 feet something tall, you know, 200-pound rocker, you know, he wasn't a Gino boy. He was like a rocker and whatever. So, and he had some pretty, you know,
imposing physique
and imposing friends with imposing physiques.
Right. Yeah.
So Alex was a little shit his pants at that point. And then actually, George did come to the school to kind of put this boy who did this to me, to kind of put him in place. And the truth of the matter is that particular boy, he did leave me alone. We never spoke again. Actually, he apologized to me, but then after that, we never spoke again. He never, as far as I know, he never made fun of me. But the rest of the school went wild. And they combined this incident with my eyes, and it was horrible.
So you became Cyclops the slut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was following me. And I would even if I was just walking to the donut shop near my school, not even going towards the school, there was laughter and screaming and, oh, look at the Cyclops, you know, she's going for coffee. Oh, you know, maybe we should all get in line and whatever the case is. It was terrible. It was terrible. It got to the point that I just didn't go to school. I didn't go to school. And not only did I not go to school, but I basically shut myself up in my home and just ate myself to death. And I started to gain weight. So that's Up until 16 years old, I wasn't your bone rack, but I had your Mediterranean curvy body.
Mm-hmm.
But then I became fat.
Right.
Like, I mean, really fat.
Mm-hmm.
And I also tried to commit suicide, which is, of course, another miracle in itself, because my parents had certain diseases. They had their, 10 different bottles of pills on the kitchen counter or whatever. And I basically downed every single one of them. And I should have had my stomach pumped. I should have been dead. I should have been puking my guts out. And basically, because I didn't want to die at home, I went out with a friend. I looked spaced out. I looked stoned.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I regretted what I did as I was walking the streets, sort of waiting to die.
Right.
I regretted what I did. And I said, God, I know suicide is not what you want. And I don't have the right to take away my life. That's your choice when it's my time to go. But I did it. And I don't know how to save myself now. I don't know what to do. All I can do is beg you to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how I got home. My mom found me sleeping in my bed, dressed, the next day. And she was actually getting ready to take me to the hospital because I apparently had been sleeping for 24 hours and I just wouldn't wake up.
Wow.
And I did wake up and I had severe pain in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually, that's not true. Not severe. My stomach felt bothered. Like, when you eat something bad and you just kind of say, oh, my stomach's upset. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, my mom, of course, questioned, where did all the pills go? I had no choice. I couldn't lie. I told her. My mom freaked. We went to the family doctor. Doctor said, you know what? This is impossible. She should have been dead. I know what the prescriptions are. She should have been dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we went to church and thanked the good Lord that he decided that not to take me. And I didn't let my mom know exactly what was going on. I was afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of years later,
Afraid
that she would blame me for drinking, for example.
I see.
Afraid that maybe because she always would warn me, be careful who you go out with. You know how parents back then, be careful that somebody doesn't put something in your drink. Be careful who you hang out with. Be careful, whatever the case is.
It was always your fault.
That's how I felt. But
that's how they made you feel.
Well,
usually.
In my case, it was even the fear of my father, because my father had gotten so sick. Like I said, my childhood years were fantastic, but in my teenage years, my father exploded into a frenzy of screaming, yelling, calling my mother every horrible name in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Really vicious, telling her to F off, whatever the case was. And he would even let me have it for no reason.
Right.
Or he didn't like the fact that I said this is blue when he said it was black. So he would take it as I'm personally going against him just to piss him off.
Right.
Even if I could prove that, but you said it was black and I can prove that it's blue, didn't matter. He had lost his mind. So I was caught between a rock and a hard place, because I didn't want to be at home where Dad was breaking things and screaming from morning to night. And I think a couple of times he had slapped my mom across the face or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then I didn't want to be outdoors either, because I was
making fun of.
And now I've added weight to it.
Right.
So now I was the fat slut Cyclops.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now I had 3 things against me or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really caught between a rock and a hard place. Anyways, my mom decided to take me to Greece in 1989 because she wanted to take me to Russia, Moscow, Russia, to visit the doctors there to see if their diagnosis for my eyes are different. We were told that my eyes would never change, that my condition would never change. But my mom wanted to know if they're more advanced and if they could do something. So we took this fabulous trip in 1989, just me and my mom. So both my mom and I were finally free from my father. Mm-hmm. I was free from the bullying. And I met these amazing people in Greece, people my age, a little younger, a little older. I partied like it's 1999. I didn't have bullying. I had many boy callers, many dates. My mom actually at one point said, should I maybe change our tickets? Like, are you never coming back to Canada? Are you, are you getting married here? Like,
yeah.
my mom was, she saw, and then finally I was free from my real character to come out.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I changed from a follower to a leader.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem with all this was that I had a lot of anger built in me.
Sure.
Thanks to the bullies, thanks to my father. So I'm sorry to use this word, but I was a sarcastic bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to let anybody or anything ever hurt me again. And if it meant me turning around and looking at you to make my point and say, no, in that kind of a tone, no, this is how it's going to be. Because I just didn't want to be hurt anymore. All of a sudden, I built a shield around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, whoever wants to be with me and know the real me and follow me, you're welcome to. But I'm not going to put up with anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw a whole new world. I saw that there are people out there, men who are interested, friends who won't make fun, people who understand. And I finally also told my mom every single thing that had happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually became best friends because of that. So do I have something to thank all those people for? I do. They made me strong. They made my mom's relationship with me unbreakable.
Right.
They taught me lessons. Would I go back and hope that, change all that? Of course. The pain was horrifying. Remember, I almost lost my life because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And think about, we've heard stories in the news of kids committing suicide because of bullying. And I was one of those kids.
Right.
And why? What was really wrong with me? The fact that I couldn't see? So what?
Even worse, you could have been one of those kids who go in there and start shooting things up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did at one point. I wasn't a violent person. I've never been a violent person. But at one point I did say, especially to this one boy, the one that I said that thought I lied to his girl, or his girlfriend lied to him. I said, when they get married, which was my best friend with her boyfriend, I said, when they get married, I hope their kids are born completely blind.
Yeah.
And then when I actually moved out on my own because my parents got divorced and my father forced me to go live on my own because he threw a guilt trip on me about the only way for me to properly help you and us to help each other and keep in touch is if you live without your mother, if you live alone. And that's a no-no in Greek culture. At least back then. Young Greek girls didn't leave home unless they were married. They did not go live on their own.
Right. Yeah.
So my mom was devastated when I moved out, and I convinced her I'm a good girl. I'm not going to give you reason to be ashamed of me because I'm living on my own. You're not going to hear stories of, wild parties and all this, whatever. I said, but I need to do this to prove to him, meaning my father, that I love you both the same, regardless of what's happened between you guys. Anyway, it didn't work out that way because my father never helped or visited or anything for that matter. That's another story. My father's done a lot. He's passed away. He regretted everything he did at the end. He passed away of cancer, and he apologized deeply and sincerely at the end, even to my mother. He had beat my mother when they got divorced, and at the end, when he was dying, he basically told her, he said, I love you, and I'm sorry for everything I did to you guys. And of course, my mom said she loved him as well, and he passed away. Anyhow, so I'm grateful for that because I have closure on that. Because my father was the type of person who said things to me such as, I wish you were never born. Because you were born, you are the destruction of my life. He called me a whore. He said when I was getting married, I wanted him to give me away. And he said, I don't have any kid. And none of my kids are getting married. I don't have any kid. I don't have kids. And I'm not coming to give away a stranger. So he really, really hurt me. But again, in the end, I took care of him. Me and my mom, we took care of him till the day he died. And actually, the anniversary of his death is just now, July 2nd. I miss him. I do wish I handled things a little bit differently, but I really did try my hardest, and I never got through to him. So that's done. But just back to the bullying, like it did continue into my young adult life, because even though I came back from Greece as this, very independent girl, I had gotten a job. Finally, somebody didn't discriminate and gave me a job. I was, I had loads of money. And like I said, that particular boy that was mad at me because of his girlfriend, he actually ended up reading a couple of essays of mine that I had written in school from all the experiences of my bullying. And when he read them, because I ended up living with his girlfriend, and when he came to visit her, we sat down, we finally talked, and he apologized to me for everything. And I said, you guys almost destroyed me. You could have been at my funeral. Like, you almost destroyed me. I said, and now you've read the essays, you know what I went through. And I told him, I wished and I prayed to God that your children and your friends, like all his, his friends that he hung out with, I wished on all of you that when you got married, your kids would be born blind and even worse.
Right.
And he said, really? And I go, so tell me. I go, I take that back completely. I don't want anybody, that was just my pain speaking. I don't want anybody to ever, ever go through the bullying I went through. And of course, the blindness. There's nothing wrong with being blind. But of course, if you have the choice to be sighted, who wouldn't take sighted, right? I mean,
right, yeah.
Who would be stupid enough to say, I like being blind,
Yeah.
But, I said to him, of course I take this back. But how do you feel knowing that? And he said, I would be devastated. If one of my kids was born blind, I would be devastated. I go, would you love that child any less? And he said, of course not. I said, and how would you deal with jerks like you making fun of your kid? I said, I'd beat the shit out of them. Exactly. I said, you guys, I didn't have brothers to beat the shit out of you guys.
You didn't have anything. You were an only child, weren't you?
Exactly.
Right.
I had no cousins here. I had nothing. I had just a bunch, and even friends. I mean, none of my friends ended up sticking up for me. None of my friends ended up making this okay. You know what I mean? Or help, or trying to make it okay.
Well, except for Caroline.
Of course, they in Westwood, yes.
Yeah.
No, and even in high school, as far as I know, a couple of friends like Olga, she never made fun of me. I am grateful. And there was some kids who did speak up, but they were the minority. Right? So just because Olga maybe and Helen said, stop it, guys, this is ridiculous, stop it, leave her alone, this is horrible, they didn't listen.
Yeah.
And these were girls.
So one or two people in the school of 300 or 400.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it should have been boys. I think that if boys had stood up for me, boys against boys, that might have been different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who knows? Right. Who knows? I mean, we can go with the ands, ifs, or buts, but
right.
But anyways, after that, and I actually have this boy, when I apologized to him and he read I have him on my Facebook today, and I hope he's doing well. And I think I did hear through the grapevine that he has a child, and as far as I know, that child is normal, and I'm so grateful, because I don't wish something bad on anybody. But the bullying still didn't stop, because there was one particular guy, this guy Paul. I think he's actually maybe the one who invented the word Cyclops. I'm not sure. Like, I invented it in the sense for me.
Right.
But everybody stopped making fun of me in my 20s, or in my early 20s. And I had quit my job because I got cocky, because I thought I have enough experience now that I could get a job somewhere else. And they were mistreating me at work because they wanted me to sign some documents, and I refused. Actually, I didn't refuse. I didn't know what I should do, but my doctor put them in their place and said, you can't make her sign these documents. If her eyes, if anybody's eyes are ruined because of the computers at work, it would make a difference whether that person was looking at the computer a foot away or, 5 inches away or whatever the case is.
Mm.
So because I didn't sign those documents, they made my life a living hell, and I decided to quit.
Right.
And because, again, I thought, now I have the experience.
You were complacent.
Right.
Right.
But, you know,
but I think we should end it here and talk about your work on tomorrow's show.
Sure.
Because, as I said, we are having this is a 2-part interview, because Zoe's life is so extensive that we're covering her childhood years here on this interview. But on the next interview, and make sure you tune in tomorrow, we'll talk about Zoe's work history and experiences as a blind person, the discrimination she felt, and of course what she's doing now and what she's going to be doing. I'm sorry?
Sorry about that. Remember the Mac?
Oh yeah, your computer's really loud.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, guys, if you can tune in tomorrow, check us out, and make sure you tune in on Wednesday for
Thursday,
Thursday.
July 1st.
July 1st is Thursday?
Yeah.
Some bitch.
Happy Canada Day.
Yeah, happy Canada Day. So yeah, make sure you tune in on July 1st for the premiere of Zoe's new show, Zoe's Blind Kitchen Corner. And we'll talk about that on the next show as well. So thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
So there you have it, folks. The first part in a 2-part interview with Zoe Fiogkos. Like I said, very interesting. And Zoe's got a lot to say because so much has happened to her. She's had such a large experience with her blindness, both in school and with different people. And on the next episode, which we will release tomorrow, come back and we will tell you about her current projects and about some of her show that is premiering July 1st on Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway? And Zoe's Blind Kitchen Corner. So come check us out and make sure you tune into part 2 of the interview tomorrow on Whose Blind Life Is It Anyway? Thanks for watching the Meet Me series, folks. We'll see you next time.